he's going to get out of his addictions way quicker and then stay out of them, you know, and he's going to mature into being the humble, courageous, honest, true, loving man that you were made to be in the model of Jesus. So it's two things. It's the dynamic is friendship. The point of the arrow, the point of the spear is aiming to relate well to Jesus so you can become more like Jesus.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Ordinary Discussions Podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today we have a great guest. His name is Jeff Kemp. You may have heard that name before because Jeff was a quarterback in the NFL for 11 years. And the Kemp name is a name that's very recognizable because Jeff is the son of Joanne and Jack Kemp. Jack is a former NFL quarterback and also ran for vice president with Dole some years ago. So and was in the House of Representatives for many years, a very recognizable name. So Jeff is an unbelievable guy. He played NFL, as I said, for 11 years and graduated from Dartmouth. After that, he decided to dedicate his life to helping men and families grow closer to Christ. And so that's what he's here today to do. He's here to talk to us about level 5 friendship. How can we grow in our faith and do friendship the way of Jesus? And so that goes right along with our intentional relationship core value in ordinary movement. And I'm really excited to talk about this. Jeff has written several books. One is Facing the Blitz. It's 3 strategies for turning trials into triumphs, and Receive, the way of Jesus for men. He's now speaking across the country at many different conferences and leadership trainings. And I'm lucky enough to call him a friend and have him invest in my life. Guys, he is a great guest. You're going to love this conversation. So get ready for something that has the ability to truly change your life. Guys, thank you so much for being part of Ordinary Discussions. As always, like, subscribe, do all those things. But I'd love for you to leave comments. Let us know what you think, ask questions, all that good stuff. I'd love to get back to you and have a conversation. So guys, thanks again, and let's do this. All right, let's do this. Jeff Kemp is here with us today. As I mentioned, unbelievable guest. You guys are going to love this conversation. He's a great communicator, a passionate man, and man, I just love spending time with him. Jeff, thank you for being on the podcast.
Hey, it's my pleasure, Jeremy. Good to hook up again. We saw each other in Vail, about a month and a half ago?
Yeah, it was great. It was great. And I mean, there's a long story about how we know each other, but it's interesting how God has crossed our paths. It feels divine in how it happened. So I really believe that he has something for us today as we talk about this topic that you're so passionate about. And I am too. As I mentioned, intentional relationship is one of the 3 core values of our discipleship platform. And you're going to talk to us about level 5 friendship, which is, I think, defining what we call intentional relationships. So this is great.
Well, what happened backstory wise, Jeremy, for me is I've been speaking to men, for kind of my whole life since being in football, and then jumping into fatherhood and marriage ministry afterwards. But I knew I wanted to write a book for men. And I was researching everything about Jesus I could find in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. How did he do manhood? Not just what did he do, but how did he do it? And really what I discovered was that Jesus didn't perform it the way we're all trying to perform our manhood. He received it from the Father. And one of the ways that Jesus lived out his manhood, and literally the way he carried out his mission, was friendship. No one has ever been a better friend, and no one ever taught guys how to be a better friend, and no one ever changed the world with 12 dudes who didn't even like each other to start with.
Yeah, right.
Turned into friends and sent them out as friends in twos. And they didn't have marketing. They didn't have, some social media strategy. They didn't have budget. But their friendship, which was like brotherhood and like real man-to-man, I got your back, you got my back. I'll lay down my life for you. I'll be honest with you. You be honest with me. Let's make each other better men. Proverbs calls that iron sharpens iron. Man, that changed the world and spread Jesus's message And that love shows people that he's real. Well, today, not enough guys are enjoying that friendship and
I
don't
agree.
even know that it's possible or how to get there. So that's
Yeah.
what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, discipleship is I'm passionate about discipleship. I believe that's what you're talking about here. I tell people all the time that the church, the big C, and I'm not talking about a church, but we have I feel like overcomplicated discipleship, making it all these steps and processes, and it's really just deep, genuine friendship. It's walking alongside each other in life and caring and loving. And as you would say, lay down your life for one another. And I just think that epitomizes what we're trying to do.
Well, I think, that, Jeremy, just to clarify, I think the basis of discipleship that has been ignored quite often is friendship,
Yeah.
but it's got a characteristic to it. And the characteristic, if you can think of a pyramid, um, it's the two dudes or three guys becoming really solid friends. And I love kind of a triple braided cord of buddies. But the purpose of their life is to become more like Jesus.
Yeah.
That's going to be a better worker, better boss, better employee, better husband, better boyfriend, better dad. Um, he's going to get out of his addictions way quicker and then stay out of them, you
Hmm.
know, and he's going to mature into being the humble, courageous, honest, true, loving man that you were made to be in the model of Jesus. So it's two things. It's the dynamic is friendship. The point of the arrow, the point of the spear is aiming to relate well to Jesus so you can become more like Jesus. And obviously, the Bible shows us a ton about that. But it's not just a Bible study. I don't want someone to come and say, "Let me disciple you," and they take me on as a project for 19 weeks. Oh,
Yeah.
good, I accomplished it. Now you go do this to someone else. See you later. I want friendship, man. I want to know someone's heart connects. Want to know why they care so much, um, and I need someone to hang with me during the dark days. When I'm struggling, and I plan to do that with my guys. So, we can train others to follow Jesus without being their absolute best friend, but at a minimum, you got to have your best friends and go in that same direction of
Yeah.
becoming a man like Jesus.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Well, hey, before we get started, how can people find your resources? I know we have jeffkempteam.com. I mean, is that where they should go?
Yeah, that'll do it. There's a tab on there called Men Huddle. And so jeffkempteam.com and menhuddle.com, not men's huddle, but singular men
Hmm.
huddle, like
Yeah.
dudes get together and they huddle. Menhuddle.com and jeffkempteam.com is where they'll find stuff. And a lot of it will be under either the Receive book, which is a tab, or Men Huddle.
Yeah. So we have obviously our audience is not just men, it's women as well. I mean, this is all relevant to women too. I mean, I know we're going to talk in the context of men because you do men's ministry, but I
No,
mean,
this is just for men. I'm not going to. We got to talk to women too. I don't know anything about women. I just had sons.
but
I'm still trying to
these
learn as a
concepts
husband. But
relate.
you're right. Obviously, women are more wired for relationship, but that doesn't mean that level 5 friendship is happening more automatically for women than it is men. And I think when both guys and girls hear uh, what the nature of this loyal, consistent, transformative, honest, self-disclosing, week in and week out friendship is like, a lot of women will say, "Wow, I want to add that
Yeah.
to what I have with these women friends of mine."
Yeah.
And a lot of guys will say, "Not only do I want to add that, but I got to get started with the friendships where I can make it look like that."
Yeah. Well, let's dive in. Tell me why. I mean, why are you so passionate about this topic, and why do you think people need to hear it?
Well, starting with the need, uh, guys are lonely. Guys feel really isolated. They're connected like never before in their social media and their LinkedIn and their business networks. They got some ways to stay in touch with guys from college and some past jobs. They got some guys they might play basketball or pickleball with. They have a bunch of different networks, and they have some friends that they might label deal friends. Like, I'm going to do this with you. You're going to do this with me. I'm going to do this for you. You're going to do this for me. There's still kind of a quid pro quo trade-off to it, right? And then there's a bunch of people that you can hardly even remember their name, but you say they're your friend.
Mm-hmm.
And they're people you see, weekly, but you never talk about anything deep. They
Yeah.
don't really know your inside story, and you don't know theirs. They're
Mm-hmm.
not going to call you at 2 a.m. in a crisis, and you're not going to call them. So we've got a lot of that, but knowing a lot of people and not being known leaves you empty,
Yeah.
and it also leaves you unprotected. You're not living in the light, and the result, according to the Surgeon General, is an epidemic of loneliness, and it's hitting men, both young and old, where suicide rates are going up in both. Um, it's hitting men particularly hard. And that's also during an age where, we swung the pendulum so far against men that now men are bad news and, you shouldn't be a man and men
Oh
should
yeah.
be more like women. And there's so many versions of trying to be a man that everyone's confused.
Yeah.
And then guys are busy. So they're busy, but then they don't know how to really connect and be known and know someone else. Don't really feel like there's someone who has their back. And that loneliness is a place where bad decisions are made.
Mm-hmm.
That's a place where when you're feeling pretty tired and worn out, you cave into a compromise.
Mm-hmm.
You have that fifth glass of wine. You turn, the wine and beer into vodka. Your medicinal pot becomes, I'm going to get high and escape. Um, the dabbling in looking at naked pictures becomes a porn addiction,
Yeah.
becomes, acting out in that area, or full blown sex addiction. Um, there's many other addictions that, are compromises and distractions, our go-tos when we're lonely and tired, can create. Not to mention, if you want to have a relationship with a woman and you want to be a decent dad and you have no true way to be objective about who you are and what's going on in your life, you're not self-aware. If you're not self-aware, you're not apologizing. You're
Mm-hmm.
not prioritizing her. You're missing the fact that you're blind in a bunch of areas to your overwork, your ego, your defensiveness. Um, so not only are you lonely, but you're a worse version of yourself because you have no other dudes that you can be real in front of who help you become a better guy. So that is the reason I'm passionate, because guys are struggling without teamwork, without brotherhood,
Mm-hmm.
without friendship the way Jesus intended it. Let's just call it level 5 friendship out of 5 levels. All right. The second reason that I'm passionate about it is because God is a God of relationships. This is big for you. And he made us as relational beings, and that includes men. And we were made to have good, solid, real, honest relationships. And the greatest one of all those is friendship.
Mm-hmm.
A marriage is way better when it starts off as a friendship and maintains its friendship and adds the romantic love and the sexual partnership that can grow a new life and then raise those kids. But friendship is a way better bond than a sexual bond, and all the research backs that up.
Hmm.
So spiritually, we need friendship. A, with God. Jesus said, I call you my friends and I show you everything my Father shows me. B, we need friendship with other guys, so you're not walking alone. We were made for teamwork,
Mm-hmm.
men in particular. The Lone Ranger thing is false, and it's going to fail. And thirdly, the model of friendship not only makes you a better husband, but it's a key component for getting a great relationship started and maturing in a marital relationship with a woman. So friendship is spiritually really, really important to the heart of God, Father, Son, and Spirit. He's a relational God, and we need tight relationships.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, take us on this journey of what it means to engage in level 5 friendship, and any resources you want to point us to, or
Yeah.
if anything like that. So take us down that road.
Well, I mean, I just want to kind of ask guys right now, who are your best friends, and how totally honest are you with them, and how totally honest with you are they? Do you know some of their secrets and their tough chapters of life? And do they know your secrets and tough chapters of life? Um, Do you ever get the benefit of processing what you're thinking of doing with a close friend before you do it? Or you just go off and do it, then it goes bad, and then maybe you tell a friend, hey, I shouldn't have done that. Um, the Bible says wise counsel will prevent a lot of trouble. And wise counsel means you put what you're planning to do out in front of other people ahead of time. That's what level 5 friendship includes. And level 5 friendship also means getting set free and getting healed from the sins that keep trapping you, because now you're living in the light and telling a guy, hey, I messed up here. Pray for me. Let's team up to help me get rid of this porn junk. Mm-hmm. So the power of level 5 friendship is phenomenal. So I'm asking guys, do you have that kind of friendship? And if you do have a guy that you're kind of honest with and you've dropped your guard, he knows some secrets, you know some of his, how often are you talking to him? And are you talking to him about the most important stuff in your life that you really need to talk about on a weekly basis? Mm-hmm. If you don't have that, if you can't answer yes to those questions, then you don't have level 5 friendship. You may not even have level 4 friendship. A level 3 friend is a normal friend. We got a lot in common. We do some stuff together. We see each other a lot. We may talk every 2 days, but we don't talk about what's important or the inside stuff. A level 4 friend, someone you trust, he's got your back. You got his to a degree. It's a 2 a.m. friend that you'll call in a crisis. All right. Mm-hmm. So that is a willing to go deep, and maybe you went deep in the past. But level 4 friendship is missing the consistency and intentionality of talking about the most important stuff every week. All right. And I just came up with the idea of 5 levels by copying Jim Collins from Good to Great in that business book, where he says there's 5 levels of leaders, and the best are level 5. They are the most humble, and they're doggedly focused on the main purpose. I like those 2 characteristics. Mm-hmm. You got to be confident in God so you can be humble about being honest with your friend, you know? And then number 2, you're doggedly focused on staying connected to your brother, being a good friend and being in touch with your brother, not going 2 months without talking. So that's where we came up with level 5. Let's put this picture up real quick.
Hey, real fast, I got a question for you, and then throw that up there. Of the guy, because you talk to a lot of guys in the course of a week or a month, what % of the men you speak to do you think have level 5 friendship?
Guys that have been through alcoholism or a serious addiction and have been through AA or Celebrate Recovery or something, ironically, they didn't used to have it, and now they have it at a higher percentage than the normal church-going Christian did.
Interesting.
Okay. The guy that's been through some brutal blitz had to face reality, and that teamwork of friendship was a part of how he recovered. It's built into the AA model. It's built into the Celebrate Recovery model. But just in general, very, very few guys have level 5.
What about 4? Level 4?
Oh, level 4. Yeah. A minority have level 4. I wouldn't say it's above 30%. Someone that they know, they'll call at 2 a.m. and they're going to make each other better men from time to time. But then again, even then, it's intermittent. It's not consistent, and it's not intentional.
So you think 70% of men don't go above level 3, which is we have consistent. We have friendship around our likes and interests and hobbies, and we hang out, but we don't go deep.
And that's consistent with the research. The research says that 76% of men do not have anyone that they can talk with about anything of significant depth in their life. 76%. There's also a statistic that I think it's 62% do not have a best friend. So I'm kind of assuming a best friend has to be at least in the category of 4.
Yeah. Wow.
So most guys don't have level 4. And for sure, a very small minority have level 5. The guys that do love it.
Help us solve this problem. Let's see.
Well, God's the solution to everything. So I'm not just like putting out a formula and saying, hey, follow the formula and it'll happen. You don't live the Bible that way. You say, God, I can't do it. I need you. Father, show me who my friends are going to be. Show me how to be a friend. show me what habits to form,
Yeah.
guide me. But I want that attitude of God, help me do it the way you want me to do it, to kind of supersede everything I'm saying. But let's put this diagram up.
Yeah. Good. Good. Hold it just a little closer, Jeff.
Okay.
Yeah. Right there. Good.
So you can see the depth of the friendships at the bottom of the pyramid. You could have a ton of friends, but the depth is actually way skinnier than that. At level 3, it's just kind of, moderate depth. Level 4 is deeper depth. What you'll talk about, he'll be there for you. You'll be there for him. But then level 5, look at that depth, because it's all those words: trusted, loyal, consistent. It's intentional. It's committed.
Yeah.
What was the third word? I didn't read it well.
Confidential.
Confidential has to be established up at the top, so you have trust.
No
And
secrets. Confess, pray, transforming.
that's it.
Yeah.
So level 5 adds a consistency to the level 4 honesty and courage to drop your guard, be transparent, be vulnerable. And most men don't go to level 4 or 5 because they're not sure about the safety issue, right? Is he safe? Is he going to betray me? Is he going to laugh at me? Is he going to look down on me? Is he going to think less of me if I tell him this? Dude, he's got junk that he's hiding, that he's feeling the same thing about you. The minute one of you discloses your worst secrets, the other dude's going to say, dude, thanks for the guts to share that. Let me tell you something in my life. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. C.S. Lewis said, true friendship is born at the moment when a guy says, oh my gosh, it's not just me. I thought I was the only one.
Mm-hmm.
That's how astute C.S. Lewis was. He may have been an intellect, but he was a man who practiced friendship, and he knew that friendship was formed when you drop your guard, put your real self out there, and wake up to the reality that Satan has been tricking you all along to say, don't share that stuff. They'll think less of you. They'll write you off. They'll betray you. You know what? They're gonna be thankful, and they might even open up. Now, I don't say go willy-nilly out on the internet or just call guys out of the blue and say, hey, let me tell you this dark secret of mine. Here's something worst thing of my life. You pray and you say, God, who should I lean into? Mm-hmm. And you might even say, hey, I want to go deeper with a friend and make sure that it's a safe and confidential relationship. We got each other's back. And I'm willing to be that way with you. I'd shake hands on it with you right now. If we could reach through the, computer and shake hands, or through the phone. If you're literally across the table from a friend or taking a walk in the woods, I would recommend saying, you know what, I want to deepen our friendship. Are you interested? Yeah. Well, why don't we just base it in real clarity on our trustworthiness and our safety and our confidentiality? Let's shake on it.
Yeah.
Once you get there, men are very gutsy. So I just say, put that intentionality into deepening a level 4 friendship and taking a level 4 friendship to level 5, which basically means, hey, let's start talking every single week about the most important
frequency
stuff.
Is weekly?
I think weekly is most natural. It's, I know a lot of guys that had a group or a connection that's every other week, and then you miss one of those and it's gone a month. You forget. So weekly really makes sense. And scheduling sounds dry. It's not a meeting. This is not a noun. This is not some new group you're starting. It's a friendship. It's a verb. But scheduling a time to talk each week is a discipline to win as a team. Just like football teams schedule practice. Yeah. They schedule their lifting. They schedule their workouts. They schedule their recovery. They have team meetings. They have quarterback meetings, lineman meetings. Schedule your friendship. Now, you call the guy spontaneously on Tuesday night when something's going on, or you text him on Saturday evening when you're feeling down and about to compromise. Say, dude, pray for me. All that spontaneous stuff. You still play pickup basketball. You still say, hey, you want to go hunting with me? Let's ski a half day together. Yeah. That stuff still all happens, and you can talk about important stuff then, but there's at least one call per week. For me, I do it by Zoom. I don't even meet in person with my guys anymore because they moved out of town. And you're going to talk about what's the most important thing going on in your life, what's the most important thing I can pray for, and what do you need to process that's coming up.
So how many guys would you say you have in your life that are at that level 5?
Well, I have two guys, Pete and Greg, that we've been friends and intentionally connecting every week for about 10 years.
Okay.
We know pretty much everything about each other. There's a lot of freedom and confidence. We don't judge each other. It's a no judgment zone. We don't fix each other. But I promise you, we pray for each other and we listen deeply and we ask good questions. And that alone starts fixing us. And then I have another 4 friends that I put together because they're all speakers and kind of run organizations, kind of entrepreneurial. They do the same type of stuff you and I do. And I knew the motives where you want to get hired to speak, you want to get invited to a big audience, you want a little more platform, it'll advance God's kingdom, but your ego is playing with you and you're tricking yourself. You're mad they didn't pay you a larger honorarium. That kind of stuff is easy to process with other guys that are going through the same type of
Yeah.
career. So that's 4 other level 5 friends. We talk weekly by Zoom. And it's wild, Jeremy? Research said, I read this in Wall Street Journal, it takes average of 300 hours spent together in any way doing stuff together to develop a best friend. 300 hours. That's a lot, man.
That is.
That's like 5-6 years of connecting weekly for an hour.
Yeah.
All right. These guys didn't even know each other, hadn't met or been in the same city at the same time before. I put this thing of our friend huddle together by Zoom, and within a year, and I'd say each guy probably missed 7 or 8. Within a year, after like 44 hours together talking about the most important stuff, the dudes are best friends. They're all texting each other. They call each other. They get help from one another. That is amazing. But I think it's because of the consistency and the intentionality. We made our hour together count.
Yeah.
And we might talk about the Final Four and the ski trip we took or something that just happened for 5 minutes. But within the first 5 or 6 minutes, one of the guys is going to say, okay, hey, Jeff, what's the most important thing you want to talk about today? You can go first. Or I'll say, hey, Johnny, what's most important for you? What's most important I can pray for? What do you want us to know about? That will happen within the first 5 minutes. And we go deep and we take turns. And some weeks, in fact, for a couple of years, my friend Pete, he had so many challenges. Our conversations were like 70% him getting to process and us praying for him for a couple of years. He's doing great now. He's kind of through that season. And sometimes it's me that's, got all the deep doo-doo that I'm walking through that the guys will let me spend time on.
Let me ask you something. You said something before that kind of made me ask a question in my head. You said it's a no judgment zone. We're not there to fix each other. Imagine that a man would have this question. How do you, so a man's a friend is expressing a sinful area in his life, an issue, right? That's clearly needs to be addressed. Like, how do you do that? How do you hear it? How do you not create judgment or try to fix it in that moment? Like, what does that look like?
Well, when I said that it's a no judgment zone, that means we're not bringing our personal disappointment or playing the Holy Spirit for them. That's not our orientation for what we're trying to do as their buddy. Secondly, we're not a psychologist or a counselor or Tim the Tool Man fix-it dude who's trying to, coach our friend up in the next hour to get him straightened up. So that's somewhat an orientation, but those two things do happen. Basically, the conviction of a biblical standard, an accountability to what's right, wrong, healthy, not healthy, naturally occurs when you voice what's going on in your life or you propose what you're thinking of saying or doing to the other guys. And then they ask a few questions. I'll give you an example on maybe not a real biblical moral issue, but a biblical wisdom issue. I have grown sons. I go to lunch with my buddy Greg, and we're processing life, and I'm telling him about some issue that I want to talk to one of my adult sons about. A risk in the past has been that I've over mentored and given too much advice that wasn't requested, which classic line, unsolicited advice is criticism. It's definitely taken as criticism. We need to realize that. Anyway, I threw out this idea of what I wanted to say to my son, to my buddy Greg, and he said, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Do you have a whole lot of credibility with him on that?" I thought and said, "No, not really." And then he said, "How do you think it's going to turn out?" And I said, "Probably not so well." I said, "Oh, okay. Might want to think about it." That was all he did. But God's spirit and wisdom and some self-awareness and some forethought of the outcomes, not just my idea. Lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways, acknowledge God, lean on his understanding. The way to get to God's understanding is to jump into the word and to process the way you've been thinking about life with friends so that the light shines on you. We can all justify whatever we want in our own brain. Mm-hmm. But putting it out on the table with Greg clarified it. It wasn't like sinful per se. Now, if I was really trying to boss my son, over-advise my son, critique my son, it might fit in the category of do not frustrate your children, which is a sin according to the Bible, and you're going to get bad results from it. Okay? But it was largely a wisdom issue. I didn't want to try something that was going to further complicate and mess up our relationship. So there's an example. Another example, I have a commitment that within like 48 hours of falling into one of my risk areas, and my two big risk areas, which I told my friends about when we got our huddles going. The huddles are just the consistency of your level 5 friendship. I had us all talk about what's your weak area, what's your risk area, what's your blind spot. Let's kind of put it on the table ahead of time. I told them, hey, number one, I have too big a quest for significance. My dad was a huge deal in life. And even though he loved me really unconditionally, I built my own quest for significance that has made me too ambitious. Whether I hide it through false humility or not, that's one of my risks. Call it ego, call it pride. Quest for significance. My other one is lust of the eyes, looking at women, looking at women's bodies in the airport, at the beach, in Sports Illustrated, which doesn't have a lot of bathing suit on it, or on the internet where there's no bathing suit. And, you know, so I told the guys, those are my risk areas. So I came to have lunch with Pete on a Monday after a men's retreat that I'd spoken to for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning. And the first night I was in the hotel, come back to my room at 10:30, and the couple is noisily having sex in the room next to me, and I can hear it. I didn't put on my noise dampening headphones. I didn't turn on ESPN. I didn't text Pete and Greg, my two buddies. I didn't text or call my wife. I could have made an excuse, though she's asleep. I don't want to interrupt her. I didn't do anything to replace this auditory porn that I didn't choose. I wasn't at fault. I didn't do anything wrong by being in that hotel room. Mm-hmm. But I did have a choice of would I soak in it, right? And I did. I soaked in it. I listened to it. I was imagining it. The next night, I even slowed down next to their room, wondering, are they at it again? I should have said, hey, I hope they're married. God bless their marriage. And I love my wife. She's the one for me. I'm going to try to turn off this noise so I don't think about them and put myself to sleep, or text a friend and ask him to pray. I didn't do that. So I knew I wanted to tell Pete about my shortcoming. And before I had a single taco chip at this Mexican restaurant, I said, hey, Pete, I already confessed to God. I know I'm forgiven, but I wanted to let you know how I compromised and fell short this weekend. And I was afraid. I'd never told anything like this to Pete before. I thought, oh, he's such a great family guy, such a great husband. Yeah. He's pretty darn solid with God. He's going to really lose some respect. I'm going to lose some faith in his eyes. And you know what? As soon as I told him, he leaned across the table positively smiled at me, said, Jeff, I love how honest you are with me. I really appreciate that about you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then he went ahead and shared something that he hadn't been processing in the light for 3 weeks that he wanted to confess to a friend. And you know what? We walked out of that lunch, Jeremy, way stronger than we came into that lunch.
Yeah.
That was a case of James 5:16 in action, putting the Bible into full rubber meets the road, step onto the field in the middle of a blitz and live it out by literally doing what it says. I don't know how many of us have heard, oh, confess your sins to one another and you will be healed, and have hardly ever done it. And unless you have a level 5 friendship, I promise you the odds of you doing it are really low. And therefore the odds of you getting healed from that porn, from that lust, from that anger, from that defensiveness that you have with your wife, from that gambling, from that, lust for more money, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The odds are very low. Here's a diagram of that verse in action. If I confess my sin to God, I'm fully forgiven. But look at the thickness of my ability to never do it again. Pretty thin square footage. But when I confess to Pete and Greg, look what it forms, a cross. Vertical confession forgives. Horizontal confession strengthens the resolve and the living in the light and the power to heal, which means be set free from that sin.
Yeah.
Look at that power. That's what Pete and I experienced that day.
Yeah. Hey, I probably should have said this at the beginning of the podcast. Just anybody listening, if you go to, I want to make sure, Jeff Kemp team, jeffkempteam.com. We'll put the link below, but if you go to his website, he has a level 5 friendship playbook and you can download it for free, right? Right, Jeff?
Yep.
It's a free gift.
Yeah, it's about 10-page PDF. And these diagrams are also on the receive page, which is, I think it might say new book, but you'll see the receive book and the diagrams are there. And the level 5 friendship playbook, I want absolutely every dude listening to our show to download it. It's free. You'll get my weekly blog afterwards, which you can, end if or cancel if you don't want it. But you can then send that PDF to your buddy and another buddy and say, hey, what if we kind of got intentional with our friendship this way?
Yeah.
It's a great way to find out if you're on the same page and kind of have some strategy, which men love having strategy.
And it's a very well done PDF ebook that, and it's short, it's 21 pages, but it really walks you through what we're talking about today, this level 5 friendship, how to start it, how to start what Jeff calls a huddle. You can call it whatever you want, how to invite people in, the questions to ask, how to be vulnerable. I mean, it really goes through it from start to finish. And so I want to make sure I mention that because somebody may be listening to this say, I'd love to do this, but how do I go about it? Well, you've just go in there and download that PDF and it's very self-explanatory.
And they can call you and talk about it. And I know you'll coach them through it, and they can call me. My email will be on your website if they want to get a hold of me, and they can reach me through my website. I love talking to guys about this. I like helping leaders of men, coaches, an entrepreneur who's got a team, a small group leader at a church. And you know what? Most small groups these days are meeting for 6 weeks, doing some curriculum, taking a 2-month break, starting up another 6 weeks. And they view it as their group. And what can you do with groups? You can join them and you can unjoin them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not against groups. I'm not against accountability groups. I'm not against Bible study groups. I'm for them. They're awesome. We need them. We need more of them. We only got like 3% of the men in the church are in any kind of group at all, maybe 1%, right? And you might find some great friends to go deeper with in a group, but we're not talking about a group. A huddle is not a group.
Mm-hmm.
A huddle is just the name for my friends getting together every week to talk about the most important stuff and deepen our friendship. And that's exactly what the level 5 friendship playbook coaches guys on. How to do friendship intentionally, get over the hurdles, get over the fear, establish that confidential trust, what questions to ask that'll take you deep, you know? And what scripture is this based in?
Yeah. It's a great resource. Definitely go and download it. And Jeff, I'll tell you, we'll kind of wrap up here. I'll give you a chance to kind of add anything or such before we end. But I mean, it challenges me. I mean, I asked that question: how many level 5 friends do you have? Gosh, I don't know. I have a lot of level 4. I feel like a whole lot of level 3s, but I don't know that I've gone that step of being super intentional and have the frequency or even the what feels so embarrassing conversations.
Right.
It's like that's a hard place to get to. I think what you do with this resource is you put everybody on the same page to say, here's what we're going to do. So it's not one guy going while the other 3 look at him and in judgment. It's like, no, this is what we're going to embark on. And so I really appreciate
we're all jumping into the river at the same time, up to our calves, up to our thighs. You remember, I think the priests in the Old Testament with Joshua, they had to step into the Jordan before the water would stop, and they could walk through the Jordan. So they had to. It was kind of like Indiana Jones, the scene where Indiana has to cross that giant chasm with a huge canyon below him, and he can't see any bridge. But finally, it takes a step of faith, and he closes his eyes and steps out, and he lands on a camouflaged stone bridge that looks exactly like the background, of the rock.
Yeah.
And then he wants to not depend on faith so much, so he sprinkles a bunch of rocks on it so that he can see it with his own eyes the next time. That's a great illustration for how we live. It takes faith to come to Jesus and we receive him. It takes faith to think your sins are forgiven. It takes faith to say, yeah, God, you're real, and Jesus not died and rose, and I'm going to bank my whole eternity on him. But once that happens, then we start saying, okay, what can I learn from the Bible? How can I get some principles? How can I, make this God thing work for me, where my career works and my finances go well, my health improves. I have a wife and kids, and we want to do it by our own performance instead of by faith.
Yeah.
And my friendships are a great place of reminding me, and I help remind my buddies when we're doing this Christianity thing on our own. We may be calling it faith, but we're doing it on our own. I think a good place to wrap up, Jeremy, is to answer the feeling you had that a lot of guys are having, saying, yeah, I have a lot of friends, but I don't know that I have level 4 and I don't have level 5. How do I get there? Obviously, it would help to get that playbook, but I think these are some easy steps and kind of quick tips. The first is pray. God, who are 2 guys who need me that I need? Yeah. And see who pops in your head. Start praying about them. The next thing is just be friendly and reach out to them at least once a week, probably individually. I got 2 guys in mind. You reach out to each guy once a week, check in, maybe by text and say, hey, can we catch half an hour on the phone sometime? Find out when and say, hey, I want you to talk about whatever's the most important thing in your life. And I'll start. I'll tell you what's important in my life. And then I'll pray for whatever's most important in your life. Do that casually without saying we're doing level 5 or we're doing anything official. Just do that. Your friend will say, dude, that was pretty thoughtful of him. And I like that conversation. Do it again the next week. After 3 or 4 weeks of connecting with a guy, I don't care when you connect with him, different times, and asking that what's most important going on and sharing what's most important in your life, you've built kind of a consistency and a trust that he can feel. And so by the time you say, hey, what if we intentionalize this and put a calendar together and schedule a time for a weekly Zoom, he's way more ready. Not to mention, if you've been doing it with another guy, you could say, hey, I've been doing this with my friend Jeremy and my friend Scott, and you guys have met each other before. He's of the same mindset. He wants to grow. He wants to have a brother. He wants to be committed. What if I put a Zoom together and we all talked about what we're looking for in friendship, and maybe we can get our schedules aligned and go forward? That's how groups of 3 get going. And you could tell how much easier it is just to get two guys scheduled to be talking every week. So it doesn't start with, hey, let's start a group.
Yeah.
It starts with 2, 3, 4 weeks of checking in with a guy and asking what's most important and sharing what's most important in your life and praying for him.
That's great. Jeff, thanks so much. Thanks for the resources and just stepping out and doing this for us, and just your time today on the podcast. I'm challenged. I know that anyone listening is probably challenged as well. And I can see I can already see the fruits and benefits of doing this in my own life. So yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, good. Coming up, I think every quarter, like early May, I'm going to do a huddle captains convene Zoom where I'll get 40 guys that are kind of getting a group going or wanting to take it deeper or spread it through their church. And you're the type of guy, and anyone listening that's serious about this can jump on when they get my, playbook and the blog. They'll get notified and invited and go deeper and coach it. I'm learning from the guys. I'm asking what's working for you. I'm incorporating that in this way of Jesus. It's his idea. It's not mine. It's friendship. And I pray God does great things with each dude that kind of heard something in his heart about, I got to have more of that, and I got to be that kind of friend.
That's right. Well, that's why we do these podcasts. So thanks so much. And guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. I'm sure you got a lot out of it. Check the description below. We'll have all kinds of links and information about Jeff and how to get in contact with his organization and the Playbook, etc. So thanks so much. And until next time, Jeff, we'll see you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Let's do it again.